Welcome to a story that has haunted me since I first heard it. Not because it's filled with ghosts or demons, but because it reveals the brutal truth hidden beneath a facade of wealth and power. This is no fairy tale. It's a tragedy of secrets, lies, and a girl who was missing. Or rather, she wasn't missing at all, just hiding. Sometimes the most tragic stories begin with what seems like a stroke of luck. Let's start this story at the Blackwood Manor, a place where luxury and sorrow were intertwined. The Blackwood Manor was famous not just for its magnificent Gothic architecture or its vast English gardens, but also for a mystery that had shrouded it for 2 decades. The mystery of the sole heiress, Eleanor Blackwood, and her disappearance. Eleanor Blackwood, the daughter of the wealthy Blackwood family, vanished just before her 18th birthday. The police, private detectives, and even psychics were all brought in to search for her. The news of Eleanor spread everywhere, and her name became a synonym for tragedy. The Blackwood family never recovered. Her mother, Evelyn, passed away from a heart attack a few years later. Her father, Arthur, a once powerful man, aged visibly, living a lonely existence in the vast manor, accompanied only by memories and grief. Eleanor's ghost never left the mansion. It was said that Arthur kept her room exactly as it was, with her childhood toys and silk gowns that were never worn. The Blackwood Manor became a living monument to loss, and the townspeople only whispered about the missing princess. But our story is not about a princess who disappeared. Our story is about a maid named Eleanor. Eleanor came to work at the Blackwood Manor 6 months ago. She was different from the others. Eleanor didn't talk much. She worked quietly and kept her distance from everyone. Her hair was a deep brown, tied neatly at the back of her head. Her eyes were green, but always seemed to hold an unspoken sorrow. Eleanor worked diligently, but sometimes she would stand motionless in front of a painting or an old piano, as if they were telling a story only she could hear. Arthur, in his decline, rarely paid attention to the staff. However, he seemed to have a strange connection with Eleanor. When he asked her why she chose to work in such a gloomy place, she simply replied that she was looking for a quiet place. He didn't ask further. However, there was one person in the mansion who paid close attention to Eleanor. That was Jasper, the butler of Blackwood Manor. Jasper had worked for the Blackwood family since he was a boy. He witnessed Eleanor's birth, her growth, and her tragic disappearance. Jasper was a middle-aged man with sharp eyes and a cold, distant demeanor. He always kept his distance from everyone, except for Arthur. He seemed to protect Arthur almost obsessively, even more so than a typical butler would. One time, as Eleanor was cleaning the living room, she saw Jasper standing and watching her from a distance. His gaze was cold and suspicious. Eleanor felt like a pinned butterfly, every movement scrutinized. She shivered and took a step back, accidentally knocking over a vintage vase. The sound of the vase shattering echoed through the room, followed by an eerie silence. Jasper approached, his face expressionless, but his eyes glinted with anger. "You must be more careful," he said, his voice low and cold. "Things here are very valuable." As Eleanor was cleaning up the shattered pieces, she noticed a small photo that had fallen from under the table. It was a picture of a young girl with golden hair and a radiant smile. It was a photo of Eleanor Blackwood. The picture was old and yellowed, but her beauty still shone through. Jasper saw her holding the photo, and his face tensed. He snatched the photo from her hand roughly. "Don't touch what doesn't belong to you," he said, his voice filled with rage. Strangely, as he looked at Eleanor's photo, a flicker of sadness crossed his cold eyes. But it quickly disappeared, and he returned to his usual distant expression. Eleanor felt a strange sense of familiarity. She didn't know why, but the image of Eleanor in the photo seemed to be telling her something. After that, a strange thing happened. As Eleanor was cleaning Arthur's study, she accidentally dropped a book. When she picked it up, an old piece of paper fell out. It was a handwritten note with messy handwriting. Eleanor couldn't resist her curiosity. She read the lines, and her heart seemed to stop. The paper was a will, but not the one everyone knew about. It was a secret will, written by Arthur Blackwood for his daughter, Eleanor. But the most terrifying thing was the last line of the will, which stated that Arthur had a terrible secret about Eleanor's disappearance. And if she ever returned, she would have to discover the truth herself. Alara didn't know why, but she felt a deep connection to those words. She quickly put the paper back in the book. She had the feeling that a curtain had been lifted, and behind it was a terrible secret waiting to be discovered. She didn't know what she would have to face, but she knew that her life at Blackwood Manor would never be the same again. That evening, as Alara was getting ready for bed, she heard a soft knock at her door. When she opened it, Jasper was standing there. His eyes were colder than ever. "What are you looking for, Alara?" he asked, his voice full of menace. "Don't think you can hide anything here." Alara felt a chill. She didn't know what he had seen or what he knew, but she knew she was standing on the edge of a precipice, and one small mistake could send her falling. Alara couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, looking out the window, where the faint moonlight illuminated Blackwood Manor. She had the feeling that every wall, every corner of the room was hiding a secret. And she, a maid, was in the middle of a tragedy that had lasted for over 20 years. She didn't know if she had the courage to uncover the truth, but she knew that to find out the truth about Eleanor Blackwood, she would have to face the ghosts of the past, and perhaps her own ghosts. Alara felt like an animal cornered after her encounter with Jasper. She couldn't forget his cold, menacing gaze. Now, every step she took in Blackwood Manor felt heavy. The mansion, once a place that offered a sense of peace, had now become a prison of secrets and surveillance. The incident with the secret will had triggered a chain of unpredictable events. Alara couldn't stop thinking about those words. The terrible secret about Eleanor's disappearance. The phrase kept repeating in her mind. She knew she should forget about it, but an invisible force was pulling her closer to this mystery. Then, another event occurred. Arthur, with a tired and sorrowful expression, called Alara to his study. Alara felt anxious, wondering if he knew she had read the will. But Arthur didn't mention it. He just looked at her with a profound sadness. "Do you resemble her?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. "You look like my daughter, Eleanor." Alara felt a chill. She had a feeling that Arthur was seeing someone else when he looked at her. She just stood there, speechless. "I once had a daughter," he continued. "She had golden hair and a radiant smile. She was the light of my life. But she disappeared, and I couldn't do anything to save her." Arthur began to cry. Alara, unable to control her emotions, approached him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Arthur looked up, and for the first time in a long while he smiled. "Thank you, Alara," he said. "You brought me a little peace." Alara felt confused. She didn't know why she could comfort a man she barely knew. But she knew that Arthur's pain was real, and it had melted the icy layer in her heart. Then Jasper appeared. He didn't say anything, just looked at Alara with a look of annoyance. "The master needs to rest," he said to Alara, his voice full of warning. "You can leave." Alara understood that Jasper was trying to protect Arthur from her. She didn't know why, but she had a feeling Jasper was hiding a secret even bigger than what she had found. Alara started paying more attention to everything around her. She noticed that Jasper always tried to keep her away from Eleanor's room. Every time she passed the hallway leading to that room, Jasper would coincidentally appear and ask her to do something else. Alara's suspicion grew. She decided she had to find a way into that room. One night, when everyone was asleep, Alara sneaked to Eleanor's room. The door was unlocked. She opened it and stepped inside. The room was just as it was. Eleanor's clothes were still on the chair. Her toys were on the floor. But there was something strange. Everything in the room was covered in a thick layer of dust, except for an old wardrobe. Alara walked closer to the wardrobe. She opened it, and her heart seemed to stop. Inside the wardrobe were not clothes, but notebooks, letters, and a small box. Alara began reading the notebooks. They were Eleanor's diaries. The first pages told of a happy, cheerful girl. But the more she read, the darker Eleanor's tone became. She wrote about loneliness, about the secrets her father was hiding. She wrote about her father forcing her to marry a man she didn't love. The man's name was Julian, a wealthy and powerful man, who was a close friend of her father. And then Eleanor found a letter. This letter was from Eleanor to her mother, Evelyn, hidden inside the notebook. In the letter, Eleanor wrote that she knew about her father's and Julian's conspiracy. Julian was not a good person. He was a fraud, who had planned to seize the Blackwood family's assets. Eleanor had also discovered that Julian was secretly having an affair with Jasper, the butler. And the most terrifying thing was that Julian and Jasper had planned to murder Eleanor to get the inheritance. Eleanor wrote that she couldn't trust anyone, and she had decided to run away. She had planned to fake her own disappearance. Eleanor felt dizzy. The horrible secret had been revealed. She understood why Jasper always tried to keep her away from this room. He was afraid she would find this evidence. Eleanor rummaged further, and she found a small box. Inside the box, she found a ring and an old photo. The photo was of a young girl with golden hair and a radiant smile. It was Eleanor, but there was something strange. The girl in the photo was wearing that ring on her finger, and Eleanor felt a chill when she realized that the ring looked exactly like the one she was wearing, a ring she had received from her own mother. Suddenly, she heard a sound outside the door. She panicked and hid the items. Jasper stood at the door, with a face full of suspicion. "What is it, Eleanor?" he asked. "What are you doing here?" Eleanor tried to stay calm and said she had just gotten lost. Jasper didn't believe her, but he didn't say anything more. He just looked at her with a look of annoyance. After Jasper left, Eleanor took out the ring and the photo. She compared her ring to the one in the photo. They were identical down to the smallest detail. And then, she realized a terrible truth. Her mother had told her that she had found her in an orphanage. Her mother had given her a ring and said it was a family heirloom. Eleanor had never believed that she was an orphan. But now, she was starting to have some doubts. Could she be Eleanor Blackwood? It sounded crazy. Eleanor had been missing for 20 years. Eleanor had lived her whole life with the name Eleanor, with the memories of another person. But she couldn't deny the strange resemblance between her and Eleanor. The green eyes, the deep brown hair, and the identical ring. Everything fit together in a terrifying way. Eleanor didn't know if she was Eleanor or not, but she knew that she had found a secret too big to keep to herself. She had found a horrible conspiracy behind Eleanor Blackwood's disappearance. And now, she had to face an undeniable truth. She, a maid, was at the center of a tragedy that had lasted for over 20 years, and she had to find the truth, even if it meant she had to face Julian and Jasper, and the secrets she didn't want to face. Eleanor felt like she was walking on a tightrope. Suspicion and fear had become her companions. The secrets she had uncovered were threatening to swallow her whole. And now, she had to face a truth more horrifying than she had ever imagined. After discovering the ring and the photo, Eleanor became anxious. She began searching for information about Julian, the man mentioned in Eleanor's diary. She found that Julian was not a wealthy man, but a fraud. He had swindled many other wealthy families before coming to the Blackwood family, and he had disappeared right after Eleanor's disappearance. Suddenly, Eleanor heard footsteps. She panicked and hid the ring and the photo in her pocket. Jasper walked in. His eyes were cold and full of suspicion. "The master wants to see you," he said. Eleanor followed him to Arthur's study. Arthur looked very tired and weak. He looked at Eleanor with a sad expression. "I have something to ask you, Eleanor," he said. "Do you know about my daughter's disappearance?" Eleanor felt her heart pound. "I don't know anything," she said. "I just started working here." Arthur nodded. "I understand," he said. "But there's something I've kept secret for 20 years. Julian, my close friend, threatened me. He said that if I didn't hand Eleanor over to him, he would kill her. I had to take Eleanor to a safe place and tell everyone she was missing." Eleanor felt a shock run through her. "Where did you hide her?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I can't tell you," he said. "I hid her somewhere no one could find her. But I made a mistake. I didn't know who was good and who was evil." Arthur looked at Eleanor, and a flicker of hope lit up in his eyes. "Can you find her?" he asked. Suddenly, the study door opened. Julian walked in. He was no longer an old, sickly man. He looked powerful and dangerous. "Arthur," he said, his voice full of menace. "You promised me you wouldn't say anything." Julian turned to look at Alara. "Who are you?" he asked. "Why is he talking to you?" Alara felt her heart stop. She knew she was trapped. She was standing between these two men. She didn't know who to believe. "I'm just a maid," she said. "I don't know anything." Julian scoffed. "A maid?" he asked. "Then why is he telling you about his family's secrets?" Suddenly, Jasper walked into the room. He looked at Julian with an angry expression. "Julian," he said, "you can't do this." Julian turned to look at Jasper. "You're still here, my love?" he asked. "I thought you were gone long ago." Julian laughed mockingly. Jasper felt a pang of agony. Alara looked at them, and she realized that she had misunderstood everything. Jasper was not a bad guy. He was just a pawn in Julian's game. Julian turned back to Alara. He approached her and grabbed her hand. "Look at her," he said to Jasper. "She looks so much like Eleanor. Maybe she can help us find her." Julian laughed. "Or maybe she is Eleanor?" Alara felt a shock run through her. "I'm not Eleanor," she said. "I'm Alara. I'm a maid." Julian didn't believe her. He squeezed her hand tighter. "I know you," he said, his voice full of malice. "You are Arthur Blackwood's daughter." Arthur, in his decline, looked up. "Don't you dare touch my daughter," he said. Julian laughed. "I've been looking for her for 20 years, he said. "And now I've found her. She faked her disappearance and became a maid." "What a funny story, isn't it, Arthur?" Julian laughed mockingly. Suddenly, Jasper pulled a knife from his coat pocket and stabbed Julian. Julian fell, his eyes wide with surprise. Jasper looked at Julian, his eyes filled with tears. "I've worked for the Blackwood family since I was a boy," he said. "I watched Eleanor grow up. I fell in love with her. I tried to protect her from you. I pretended to work for you so I could find a way to help her. I told Eleanor I would help her fake her disappearance." Jasper turned to look at Alara. "She faked her disappearance," he said, "and took her to an orphanage. Her mother died of a broken heart, and she became Alara, the maid." Jasper knelt down. "You are Eleanor Blackwood," he said. Alara felt a wave of dizziness. All the pieces had fallen into place. Her vague memories, the sense of familiarity, and the ring. It was all true. She was Eleanor Blackwood. She had faked her disappearance to escape Julian's conspiracy, and she had returned to her own mansion without knowing it. Julian was bleeding, but he could still speak. "You won't get away with this," he said. "The police will come and arrest you, and I'll have the last laugh." Alara looked at Julian, then at Jasper. She didn't know what to do. She had found the truth, but this truth was too horrifying. It had killed her parents. It had almost destroyed her life, and now it was threatening her very existence. Alara felt like a puppet whose strings had been cut. She had lived a fake life, and now she had found the truth. But this truth was too terrible. It had killed her parents and almost destroyed her life. Jasper called the police, and they arrived. Julian was dead. Jasper was arrested. As the police took Jasper away, he turned to look at Alara. "I'm sorry," he said. "I loved you, Eleanor. I tried to protect you. I hoped you would find me, but I was wrong. I destroyed my own life for the love I had for you." Alara looked at him, and she felt a deep sense of pity. He wasn't a bad person. He was just a man who had made a terrible mistake out of love. Arthur, in his decline, had collapsed on the floor. Alara went to him and held him in her arms. "Father," she said, "I'm Eleanor. I've come back." Arthur opened his eyes and looked at her with a look filled with tears. "My daughter," he said. "I'm sorry. I hurt you. I lost you, and now I found you. But it's too late." Arthur passed away in Alara's arms. After everything was resolved, Alara stayed at Blackwood Manor. She became the sole heiress. She sold Blackwood Manor and donated all the money to a charity. She didn't want to live in a place filled with painful memories. She lived a new life with a new name, She became a writer and she wrote a book about her story. The story of Eleanor Blackwood, the girl who faked her disappearance to escape a conspiracy, and who returned to her own mansion to discover the truth. The story of a father who made a terrible mistake, and a man who sacrificed himself for love. The story of a girl who lived a fake life and found the truth. Eleanor found peace. She forgave Jasper and she forgave her father. She found a new life, and she learned that sometimes the biggest secrets are hidden right in front of us. She lived a new life, with the memories of the past and the hopes for the future. She was no longer a maid. She was no longer a missing heiress. She was Eleanor, a strong woman who had overcome everything. And this is the story of Eleanor, a story that taught us that sometimes what we're looking for is already within us. This story is a reminder that the truth can sometimes be brutal, but it's also a gift. It gives us the strength to overcome difficulties and to find ourselves. And that's what's most important. If the story has intrigued you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I'll be back with more mysterious and fascinating stories. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching.